Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones. Welcome in to A Glitch in the Matrix. Gosh, we have a wonderful show lined up for you guys today. I've got my buddy Nick Sylvester here in the studio, and it's so cool that somebody, I think it was Andrew, had mentioned just this week, man, I wonder what Nick Sylvester thinks about that. We were talking about, I don't know, we've been on a tangent talking about all this stuff in the solar system, all these interstellar objects, the alien invasion. We don't know what's going on, do we? I never know what's going on. But we've got even the Kin Panama deal. Okay, we may ask Nick about that. I doubt he's followed that, but who knows? We'll ask Nick's opinion on that as well. It seems as though Kin ended up in the hospital finally for touching that venomous looking goo. Okay, so gosh, I love what I do, y'all. It's so great. And so we're gonna get into that in just a little bit, you guys. And so thank y'all so much for being here. We had a wonderful show on Monday. We always have wonderful shows. So if you guys missed any of the past shows, please go back and check those out. I do have a website where they're all archived. Of course, you can also go to my YouTube channel. I've been updating my Rumble as well. And you can find all my shows there, but also on my website here, thecryptidhuntress.com. And you can find links to all my social media platforms and my Patreon and my shop on Etsy. It's called War Woman Good. So thank you guys so much for all your support. It means the world to me. And I want to thank all my moderators for being here today. Y'all are awesome. Oh yeah, don't let me forget about the conference. Thank you, Andrew. I do have the Super Soldier Activation Conference coming up next weekend, a week from Friday. Actually, it's next week. It's next week. That's right. I will be in Orlando, Florida. I will be giving a presentation. I believe my presentation will be on Sunday. So you guys come see me down there. Get your tickets, book your rooms, and we'll have James Rink there. Carrie Cassidy will be there. Miles Johnson, Sherry Div Band, you name it. They're down there. Okay, it's going to be awesome. And I can't wait for that. And I do have a Bigfoot Festival in November and 2 UFO conferences. And I think Dr. John will be here with us tomorrow night on the remote viewing show. We'll talk about his stuff coming up as well, all his conferences and Comic-Cons. So let's get to Nick. All right. Because Nick is I always say he's a leader in the truther movement. He's just an all-around awesome dude. And we're going to get into some hot topics today. He's kind of like one of my insiders, I like to say. Please help me welcome to the show, without further ado, Mr. Nick Sylvester. Hey, Nick.
Hello, Jess, and hello to all of your amazing viewers. It's always nice to be here. Thanks for letting me show up.
Well, you're always mentioned either in the comment section, the live chat, or by me. We're always wondering, what would Nick's opinion of this be? What does Nick know when it comes to some of the topics that we talk about? I'm serious. I'm serious, Nick. You're always thought of highly.
What does Nick think? Yeah, well, I guess I have a wide spectrum of interest. You know what I mean? Anywhere from A to Z, anywhere from Dogman werewolves to the cosmic world to the geopolitical world, to the spiritual. I've over my life, I've studied a great deal about, everything. And I've met a lot of interesting people in every realm. I've talked to, I've interviewed many insiders, in each of the little fields here and there. And luckily, I've had a pretty good grip and handle on my own intuition and my own abilities to tap into what some call the cosmic web, Akashic records. You know, I have a few little gifts that are nice to have, and you know, you sort of put it all together like breadcrumbs and see what the picture looks like. So yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Oh yeah, you're bridging all the different communities just like I am, and putting all the information. It's all so connected, and so I absolutely love having you here because you and I have a lot of the same interest, 100%. And so, all right, I don't even know where to start today. Okay, I guess let's talk about one of the hotter topics right now, and that is the ThreeI Atlas. What is it, Swan 25 or Swan R2 now? I thought it was Swan 25, but Swan R2. There's some interstellar objects that are making a buzz right now. We've been talking about it. I've been tasked twice with ThreeI Atlas as blind coordinate remote viewing targets by two different people, and I've gotten some really concerning data out of it. Almost like it's humans. I don't know what's going on. It's not just a comet for sure. But what do you know about it? Let's talk about it.
Well, I know a great deal about it. You know, there are a lot of people studying it. You know, a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds, and you know, it's a difficult thing to explain because it's a multi-dimensional phenomena, as most things are. You know, most people by a long shot view the world from a three-dimensional aspect, but it isn't that way at all. Things from other dimensions are overlaid and happening real time all around us, you know, and it's funny because I didn't really learn a lot about how all that works until I started getting into the spiritual studies a few years ago. That was the last interest that I've you know, jumped onto. But anyway, so yeah, it's not a comet. I mean, I think most anyone who has really looked into it knows it's not a comet. It doesn't behave like a comet. Even the 3D signatures that it's showing proves it's not a comet. Now, we've known about this for a very long time. The Alliance has been aware of this situation for a long time, as have the bad guys. This was always going to be something that the bad guys were going to use as that fake Project Bluebeam alien invasion. You know, it was going to be some of the fuel that they utilized, you know, for that event, right? So right now, ThreeI Atlas has just entered the Mars orbit. It has just passed relatively close to Mars, going past the planet, going in and soon out of the Mars orbit. And about now, it's you know, in relationship where the Earth is and the sun is, it's going to be behind the sun from our vantage point. For maybe 2 months. So you know what I'm saying? Because the planets are revolving in a plane, but they're not lined up. So it just passed Mars, and from our vantage point, it'll be behind the sun. Anywhere between right now and very, very soon. And then in about 2 months, it's going to make its way back into viewing. All right. And in this process, it's going to, yeah, there's a good picture of it. Mm-hmm. And you see how Earth is there, and as it moves, and Earth is going to continue to go to the left, the screen left, and it's going to get in between the sun and ThreeI Atlas. But an interesting thing about it is, I mean, the reason it's named that is third eye, the third eye, like the sixth chakra, you know, the chakra of wisdom, the indigo, and by design. I mean, this has always been by design. The ship is It's a ship of the intergalactic, or excuse me, the Intergalactic Confederation, a very, very old group. Some people know them as the Cedar Race, the Builder Race. They are a group that originally seeded the humans, 23 different civilizations. I mean, there are more in this confederation, but we believe that there are 23 different civilizations that are responsible for seeding the entirety of the human race. We're a mixed bag. We believe that it's got a strong Lyran influence, the ThreeI Atlas, but there are multiple races that are being represented by this. It's not actually the only ship there. I mean, there's an entire fleet, an entire convoy. Most of the time, these vessels are cloaked from the 3D, from the ability of our scientists to view things. But this particular vessel is deliberately showing itself. It is a messenger. It is a object that is being used to seed consciousness, not just of this planet, but this entire solar system. The solar system is full of life. Each planet, the moons around the planets, they're all inhabited by different groups. And this is a choice point. It's very complicated. For instance, different events can be seen differently by different people based on their level of consciousness, their level of understanding, the depth of their soul progression. Okay. So one person can look at something and see a rock, and one person could see a being, and one person could, that kind of thing. So we are still being offered choices, because that is a very important thing. How will we receive this object when it does things that force us to realize that it is not an inanimate object? How will we react? How will humanity react? Will they react in disbelief and dismiss it and ignore it? Will they react in fear, or will they react in an awakening type way where we can see the love and the depth of the universe, and we can understand that we're certainly not alone? And there will be aspects of true love being emitted from this craft, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, the solar system is full of ships from multiple different civilizations. So I mean, that's sort of like a snapshot of what it is, and based on the reaction from the planetary group, from humanity, that will dictate how things will go forward. That will dictate the speed of disclosure. That will dictate a great number of things. Are we ready? Are we almost ready? Are we not ready? But from what it seems like that we are getting pretty close to being ready for open contact. And the galactics, the part of the alliance that is not earthbound, over the last year and a half, they've been not terribly happy with the speed of disclosure from the governments. And they're taking certain things into their own hands, but it is going to be based on the human level of consciousness, first and foremost.
Mm-hmm. This has been a long time coming. And so I love hearing you say that, all of this, because I have heard that there is almost like a deadline And there's a deadline where, they better tell. And you might have said that on one of the last shows you came on here with me. I think you might have told us that, but I've heard that there's a deadline, and everybody's kind of like working really hard to like try to raise the consciousness, whether we know it or not, of everybody before this happens. And it's really good to hear that we're not going to have some kind of a fake alien invasion, hopefully. Maybe that's been thwarted.
No, and another real big thing that this event is doing over this period of time, it's not just, we can't see it. So this whole time it's present with us. The design is to awaken the memory activation of every human. Every human has memory stored in their DNA from past lives, lives on others in other civilizations, and it's designed to sort of help with this memory activation process. Mm-hmm. But deadline, we're well past the deadline. See, that's kind of the thing. We're really playing catch up, and if you want, I can sort of paint a broad picture of sort of what is going on this timeline, on this sort of deadline that it feels like we're on. If you think your viewers would be interested.
Absolutely. I'm on the edge of my seat right now. I would love to hear it. Thank you.
Okay. A lot of this deadline thing, started back in the 80s when Reagan was president. You guys are probably aware of the whole Star Wars movement that Ronald Reagan sort of spearheaded. And, there are reasons for this. And one of the reasons was the utilization of something called Project Looking Glass, a gifted technology. Arguably, where it was from, I'm not sure. Was it the Andromedans? Maybe. Anyway, it was gifted to humanity. Obviously, the bad guys took it for their own use. Currently, the good guys have it. The bad guys don't. But for a very long time, the bad guys, the cabal, had utilization of this Project Looking Glass, this technology where how it would work is you could feed it. It was a form of quantum computer where you can feed it possibilities, scenarios, and it would extrapolate what would happen in the future if we did this, or we did that, or this happened. And you can follow timelines through the years, and they would sort of dictate how they would operate within humanity to get the desired outcome for the cabal, for the bad guys, right? And they utilized this. Early on, they had difficulty with its complexity. A lot of times there was a lot of errors made. And over the years, they got better at it. And sometime in the mid-late 80s, they made a discovery. They brought geniuses in from all over the world to work on this, that had that type of understanding of how to maybe get this thing to work properly. But what happened, and this is a very, very big thing, and most people don't know this. What kept happening is the bad guys were feeding in multiple possibilities. What if we made this guy president? What if we assassinated this person or took over this country? You understand there was a lot of complexity in these operations.
Yeah.
But the important thing is when these hundreds of different timelines were being shown through time, through the 80s, through the 90s, into the 2000s, when they came to the year 2012, we all know about the Mayan calendars and the multiple ancient civilizations, that the calendar basically ended, December 21st, 2012. I think we all know about this. And that was a real stop date. that was supposed to be the end of this particular piece of history. The human race, this civilization, are we the fifth? Are we the sixth civilization that's been come and gone on this planet? It's arguable, but it's something like their fifth or sixth. We were supposed to have already been done with this, into ascension, moving on, either pass or fail. Okay. And I can explain that in a little bit, but okay. So what would happen is every time all of these timelines would converge at 2012 to 2, no matter what they did, no matter what they fed in, no matter who was working the processes. 2 timelines. That's all. They couldn't get it to do anything else. And both timelines were not so great for the cabal. One of them was a catastrophic timeline, something where the planet would be extremely damaged. Floods, catastrophe, volcanoes, pole shift, solar flash that would basically destroy most of the surface. And the other timeline that was visible was the Great Awakening, was the massive awakening of humanity. And that timeline would have destroyed the cabal. They couldn't go that way. The only way they could go was the catastrophic timeline.
Pure destruction.
Otherwise, they're gone. So
they're out of here. Get them out of here.
When they figured that out, that is what changed things. That is what showed the ushering in of the change of the plans. They were no longer wanting to just feed on us like cattle, kind of keep everything copacetic, suck our energy, keep us enslaved. All of a sudden, that's when they brought in George Bush Sr., the number one Nazi of our time, that changed it. That's when they started writing the plans of eliminating 90%, 95% of population. That's when they started creating a lot of the diseases and dangerous vaccines. That's when the poisoning really, really, really started, okay? Because they said, that's the timeline we're going to go on. That's why the cabal started really amping up the building of underground cities, underground bunkers. That's why all that happened, because their plan was to get to the 2012, have the solar flash or whatever was going to happen, destroy most of humanity. They would be underground. They'd stay there for a couple of years. They'd come out and repopulate with their own cabal people.
Oof.
That was the plan.
That makes me mad. I've heard that. I've heard that. I've heard parts of that. I hadn't heard it all, what you just said. That is diabolical.
So that's why the full court press started. That's why all of this took place. And throughout there, there's bad guys, there's also good guys. The good guys since the 80s have been petitioning to some of these alliances, sphere being alliances, the Galactic Confederation, the Andromedan councils, the Syrian councils, for assistance. And it took a great number of years for these councils to figure out if interference was going to be better or worse for the progression of our souls. That's kind of what they're more looking at. They don't really look at, this particular generation, this particular lifetime, because they live for thousands and thousands of years. They see things differently. They have a different perspective. Will this assist us or will this retard our growth? Anyway, so sometime in the middle of 2013, 2014, they decided to buy us more time. They quarantined the solar system. They wouldn't allow any more bad guys to come in. They wouldn't let any bad guys go out. It was sort of a time where we were on lockdown and we were all figuring out what's going to happen. The bad guys knew this, and that's when the most important thing in our time took place, is the election of 2016, when Hillary was supposed to win. And if that happened, it would have been pretty much all over, for us. But they didn't realize that the good guys had a plan better than theirs. So, thank goodness took place.
Now, Nick, by the good guys, there have been people that have been, I'm not going to say planted, but people that have been planted in all sects of our military, like sections of like our military and our government, corporations, all that, right? Like there's been like what they call the white hat. I don't know, is it white hats or just like the good guys basically? And you probably never know who they are, right? But they all had a mission, and it was a big one. It was a big one.
Well, it was, the dark forces, the cabal, they've been infiltrating from the beginning of time, very slowly over time. And a huge influx was 1947, Project Paperclip, where the Nazi regime basically took over the United States. I mean, we didn't win World War II. We won it in the public, because that would more easily allow the United States to be taken over by the cabal that was calling themselves the Nazi Party at the time. And people wouldn't see it. And that was when all of the corporations and the government agencies were infiltrated by, actual Nazis, card-carrying Nazis, Gestapo, the SS, and all of the minions of Hitler that came over here, and the rest went over to Argentina. But that's a totally different story. And through those decades, more and more and more of the infrastructure of the world, the leadership, the bad guys infiltrated. But around the time of Kennedy, the opposite started happening for the good. Where there's good, there's bad. Where there's bad, there's good. Duality always will exist. And in at least in these lower dimensional realms, the 3D, the 4D, as you start getting up into the middle fifth density, the duality starts going away, and the unity factor starts happening. And eventually there is no dark as you get past the middle upper level of the fifth. Anyway, so the good guys were infiltrating the already bad guys that already did infiltrate. So these processes, this push and pull, was taking place every day for decades and decades, generations and generations. And it's extremely complex. And I don't believe anyone out there fully understands all the details. But I don't think the details are terribly important right now. We have to understand the basics of how it all worked.
Yeah, well, we have there's so much going on right now, and I feel like there's so many events and things that are just really opening people's minds to stuff. Now, whether things are staged and hoaxed, or whether they're actual real, let's just say like our meteorite alien out of Panama. Have you heard about this? Stuff like this. Something that landed in some guy's backyard. He went on TikTok and started documenting this thing. I've been following it. I actually did a remote viewing on it at some point, and it has really brought in people who would not normally look into stuff like this, and they are on the edge of their seats. They're watching every bit of it. Every time he makes a post, Kin Panama on TikTok, y'all, and it's turned into this thing. Went from we call it the tater invader, like a potato, and then it sprouted some devil's fingers fungus looking stuff, and then it started turning into a gremlin of black goo, and it has just gone avalanche. I don't know, it's snowballed into he's finally ended up in the hospital, and people have swatted him and all this stuff, and it's just like it's theatrical, Nick.
Yeah.
But it's opened up people's minds to this.
That's a very, very good take on it, Jess, because that is exactly the purpose of these things. Okay, these things are entered into our reality for a reason. Nothing is random.
Nothing is random. Right.
These, I mean, all of the things that are showing up in the news, it is for the awakening of humanity. That's all that's left to do. That the problem is it's all got to be done by us individually, one by one. Is this actually real? No, it isn't. And I can say that with, I would say close to 100% accuracy, because if it was, that thing would have been taken away pretty much immediately. There are groups in both sides of the intelligence agencies, military, government, that keep a real close eye on stuff like that. Stuff that that can destroy the population. But no, I actually talked to one of my friends that is a channeler, probably the best that I've ever known. He lives in a part of India that's right on the base of the Himalayas, right on the base of Mount Everest. He's been channeling different entities for a good long time, and I've been sort of keeping a good eye on him. And the ET groups all agree that it is not a real entity, but it is an offering to expand the belief systems of humanity. That's what it is for.
You're talking about Kin Panama's black alien, the black goo alien, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
That is the offering to humanity, man. I feel bad because I was saying we should somebody needs to get a blowtorch.
It's not real.
It's not real.
But what I'm trying to say is these type of things, just like that big silver orb with all the writing that somebody discovered, and many, many, many things. Yeah, that.
We've got
many things like that. These are simple. These are offerings. They serve the same purpose as many things, like the statues of Easter Island. The Nazca lines, the pyramids all over the world, cattle mutilations, crop formations. All of these serve one purpose: to create wonder within the human psyche. To get their minds out of, I got to go to work, I got to come home, I got to make dinner, then I got to do it again. It is to expand the consciousness. It is to challenge the limiting belief structures that we all have, that we all utilize in our day-to-day lives. These are the purposes of these occurrences. Okay? People can look at them as random, nonsensical occurrences, but they are not that. They're absolutely deliberate. And the things we're being shown, the news stories, the articles, the things that make us mad, make us happy, they are all being deliberately shown for a reason. Okay? And you need to find within yourself, what is that reason? How does that make me feel? And if it makes you feel angry or hateful or scared, then that is where you're not free. That is where you still need internal work to fully understand what it is that you're being shown and why. Everything you see, ask, why are the white hats? Because everything now is pretty much white hat. Why are they showing me this? Why is this important to me? You know what I'm saying? And if you look at it from that perspective, things will come to you easier.
Mm-hmm. Oh man. Okay, that's wonderful. Yes, I'm always trying to, when I encounter people, and it's like, people in my family and stuff, and I love my family very much, but when it's like, let's just say like someone dies that's a big public figure, let's just say, and it's there's just more to it. You know what I mean? And to stay glued on the televisions, it's just like with any kind of national tragedy that we have. It's kind of like, let's expand our thinking on this. Okay. Like I'm always trying to like reel it in a little bit, be like, okay, well, let's see why we're being shown this. And like, why are they showing these angles? And why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? And it's almost like, just do your own research on it. Don't take what people say. And, I'm trying to, anything I've learned, I've tried to put it out to my family, and they're getting it now, Nick. They're getting it. And everybody's questioning everything now. And it's just a beautiful thing. It really is.
And that is every bit of it by design. We must get away from sitting back and saying, when will they just tell me the truth? Why won't they just figure it out and tell me so I'll know? That in itself, it has caused the situation with humanity from the beginning, is our giving away every bit of our power to somebody else, a talking head on the TV wearing a tie, looking all neat and nice. Well, they must know the truth. They wouldn't tell me a lie, would they? That is what we're doing. That is what we're seeing with the Charlie Kirk situation. Mm-hmm. We're not going to be told the actual truth ever. Yeah. Okay? It's something that we need to simply understand for ourselves. What was that? That operation, that psychological operation for the good. It can be taken multiple ways. See, in the past, all of the psychologicals, the psyops, have been utilized by the dark for the bad, to put us in fear, to confuse us, and to allow the powers that be to tighten their grip a little bit more. You understand? And to cause division, to have people point fingers, want retribution, want blood. All right? That's the whole, 9/11 was probably the biggest of all time. It caused generational fear, generational paranoia. And more important for the cabal is it allowed them to get in to the Constitution, to the laws, to the Supreme Court, and put massive overreach guidelines, restrictions onto humanity. That is the reason. Those are the reasons. And, you can dissect it and look into it. Well, how exactly did it happen? Did they put bombs on these floors? Was there really a plane? It's immaterial. Okay. And those things are taking place. And what you're seeing now is the boomerang effect of the Earth Alliance utilizing the old ways and allowing some questions to show. So we see the way we've been living, and now we understand the processes, and we can start working on our discernment and our intuition in the future to get to a point where we can't be lied to anymore. That's all this is about.
We can see you. We got our eyes on you, cabal. Okay. Yeah, this is interesting because Corey in the chat says 9/11 is when Hoover Dam was at max energy output. That's interesting because I had just done a show last Thursday, a week ago, on remote viewing the Hoover Dam and what's under it. And there's so many rabbit holes to go down. And I've been trying to cover all the rabbit holes that I can lately. And a lot of that involves a lot of how our history has been covered up with these man-made lakes all over the country, all over the world. And pyramids, ancient Egyptian temples and pyramids and settlements all over the place, not just Egyptian, but people from all over the universe, I guess, have been here, and we don't know our true history at all. And the occult secret societies have been 100%, I'm going to say, complacent, covering all this stuff up. And it is time to let everybody know what's really going on. And I guess this is it. And we're just getting prepared for, I don't know. I know something big's coming. I just don't know what it is, Nick. Okay, something's big, and I know every generation before me was like, not every generation, but some of my friends that are older than me have been like, well, we've been planning, expecting something for a while, and it hadn't come, and maybe it'll be, like our kids' generation, Nick.
Well, it has.
But I think it's now.
It's been coming. It's been coming
Mhm.
each day. And people have to get out of the mindset that something massive and earth shattering that's going to freak out the whole world's going to happen one day, because more than likely it will not, by design. Otherwise it would have already. Okay. We as a leadership, imagine the individuals, both human and not, that are involved in the plan, that have designed the plan. I mean, imagine the immense responsibility that lays upon their shoulders. You make a mistake, you show too much, and you put people in the hospital, you put people in harm's way. And a certain kind of event, if it is very, very serious, I mean, you can set off a civil war, you could set off a world war, you could set off a series of suicides due to immense fear. For instance, if you do something that will attack or turn a specific religion on top of itself, somehow, let's just say, prove that it wasn't the way it was. I mean, you could lose millions of people overnight because they can't handle that. It is absolutely paramount. Now, I'm not saying I like any of that. I'm not saying that I'm in favor of the delicate method, but I understand it. And I know for a fact it's being utilized. I know for a fact that the groups that have been involved in this plan, and many are councils off planet, have done this before. They have liberated planets other than ours. They know how it works. They've seen successes and failures. And they are counseling the Earth Alliance, the humans, on how to do it. Let's maybe not do that, because that could, no. Things that most of us would never even think about could happen and have happened in other places. All right. So if that makes a little bit of sense.
It absolutely does. And yeah. So we're ready. I mean, I'm ready. I'm not saying everybody is, but okay, let's look on this in terms of cryptids. Okay. Because you and I met via cryptid enthusiasm, basically, through our mutual friend. And so let's look at it from a cryptid aspect, because I'm going to say, an uptick in cryptid encounters right now. And we're talking about like Dogman, Bigfoot, pale crawlers, and ghosts. Okay. I recently just did a show this past week where we played a 911 call from a guy up in North Carolina who passed by. It was actually a Revolutionary War battlefield in North Carolina in the middle of the night, like 3 a.m. And there was a young man standing on the side of the road with blood dripping down his head and wearing a uniform like he was a soldier. And the guy called 911. And we listened to the call. As he's calling 911 to report a man who's been injured on the side of the road, something jumped in his truck, the bed of his truck, banged on the truck, scratched it. He freaks out. You can hear it. He slams on his brakes. The thing flies off. Anyways, it's all over TikTok, my trusted news source right now. Okay. And I say that jokingly, Nick, but it's all over the place. Okay. So here we go. We got ghosts. We've got pale crawlers. We've got this Dogman breeding program. We've got the Dogman programs. I mean, I've been contacted by people who've been a part of those programs that I know personally, out of Texas and all through the Southwest, talking about the different levels of these programs. You and I have talked about it. It's almost like, okay, these things are being pumped out into the public right now on whatever level. And so this is another layer of the awakening here, obviously, right?
Absolutely correct. Absolutely. The disillusion of the current human belief structure, because belief structures are simply limitations. That's all they are. It's a human learning a certain amount and cutting it off, saying, that's all there is. That's all that's true. Everything out of my belief structure is a lie. And that is what is taking place. Now, the cryptid situation. Are more events happening, or are more people awake to them? Are more people willing to talk about them? Are insiders now allowed to come out, whereas before they'd be silenced?
Oh,
what is really happening? So that's part of it. People are more awake. People are more willing to talk. People are more willing to accept. And it's more in the consciousness of people. Secondly, also understand the energetic signature of this planet has rapidly been changing. A great deal of positive energy has been entering our system. The vibration, the very vibration of the planet and the solar system has been increasing. It is displacing a lot of these entities. Many people, especially the bad guys, have been dying. These negative entities, these demonics, these lower fourth astral beings need a place to go. They're being dispersed back into the realm. Imagine if 1 million bad guys died suddenly for one reason or another. Military tribunals, sudden illnesses, the vaccine, and these 1 million people were inhabited by demonics, by lower level attachments. And all of a sudden their host goes bye-bye. They need to find another host. They need to try to figure out what the hell they're going to be doing. Those things are taking place, and they have been.
Okay, well, when you were saying that, all these cloning programs that they have now, are the cloning programs some kind of dark program too, like something that the bad guys were doing so that they could have host bodies?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they serve many purposes. They serve the purpose of the debauchery. The purpose of, many clones were used for sexual reasons, for militaristic reasons. They were creating small armies underground that were going to come up one day and sort of take over. There's a lot of reasons, but yeah, there were clones that were supposed to be able to accept consciousnesses from certain dark groups. Clones cannot accept a God-created soul. They do not match. The frequencies do not match, and it can't take place. It doesn't. But they were able, through technology, to successfully transfer certain consciousnesses into these souls, into these clones. And it was relatively successful. I will tell you that these facilities have long been destroyed, shut down, and the great majority of all of the clones have been eliminated. But that doesn't mean there still aren't some. They're always probably, these things don't last very long. Even the really good ones may only last a couple of few years. The ones that were not as technologically advanced or were hurried or rushed through, they may only last a few months from life to death of the clone. Very complex discussion, very scientific, and I certainly don't possess all of that knowledge.
Oh my gosh. Well, I've had multiple people that have been on my shows. I've had at least 2 guys on my shows that believe that they have been cloned, and they are in clone bodies right now, who've been part of the secret space program.
They're not occupying clone bodies. Now, were they cloned? That is very possible. Is another entity like them walking around, or was walking around? They are not clones. The likelihood of that is probably 1 in a million. And if they were, they absolutely wouldn't be talking to you about it. Clones have certain types of technology that prevent that. They're very similar to our veil, our difficulty seeing our past lives. They are prevented from ever even conceiving that they aren't the real deal. The clones think they're real. They do not think they're clones. So it's very unlikely.
Oh, that is so interesting. We talk about clones quite a bit. You know, I love pulling up obvious comparison pictures, and to me, it's obvious of people who are, you know, actors and actresses, musicians, NASCAR drivers. You know, that it's like the same person, but living two different lives at just two different times. Whether that's, you know, faking deaths. And some of that's even coming to the surface, right, Nick? I mean, where people, celebrities have faked their deaths and they've been living incognito for all these years, and now are they going to pop back out and let us know that they're actually alive?
When the time comes, there will be some that do. There will be some that simply choose not to. Who will? No idea. But I do truly believe that there will be some that do, to be part of the disclosure. But humanity needs to be ready for this type of thing. You know, if like Elvis just showed up tomorrow, people would have a hard time with it. More than likely, they would lash out, and the people who love Elvis would, who knows what they would do. They'd, you know, you're a liar, you're a scammer, you know, let's throw eggs at him, let's stone him to death. And, you know, we're not ready for that.
You don't want to do that. He's a preacher at a church in Arkansas now. Okay, so you definitely don't want to go. Don't go throw tomatoes at him, y'all.
Maybe
okay?
He is.
Yeah.
Maybe he is. But yeah, so I wanted to sort of just throw a little topic on the, you know, since we're talking about cryptids and we love cryptids and your people like cryptids, you know, I sort of wanted to offer a possible other way of looking at things. You know, let's do the Dogman. Others are similar, but the Dogman specifically is a being that was very much perverted by the bad guys. Okay, because we all know the capabilities of such a creature. Dogman, werewolf, the capabilities are unbelievable. There are stories coming out that these beings were involved in many of the wars: World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, Middle Eastern wars. That these beings were utilized by different sides of the aisle, good guys, bad guys. There are very high up people that tell stories that the Alliance, in some of the deep underground bases that we raided, that were harboring hybrids and war groups that were created, Dogmen were used on our side to dispatch some of the reptilian hybrids because of their unique abilities or their unique style of fighting. Anyway, so just real quick, real long story, and some of your listeners may or may not believe this, but you know, I studied a great deal in the Law of One, and in the Law of One, the sixth density group, social memory complex that we call Ra. I mean, it's not who they really are, but we don't have any of their names right? We choose what we're going to call a certain group. They don't call themselves that, but for our purposes, they do. Anyway, he talks about the Bigfoot and the Dogman, and from that perspective, and that is a very well-respected perspective from many cosmic historians and scholars, these beings were seeded. Their bodies were created for certain purposes. And I mentioned before how the body of the Dogman, the physical body, is resistant to radiation. And the thinking of the Federation when they placed them here. And from what Ra says, we're talking about 600,000 years ago, 500, 600,000 years ago. And these bodies were inhabited by the souls of the departed from the planet Maldek or Tiamat that exploded, that is now our asteroid belt outside of Mars. Mars used to be a moon from this Earth-like planet that was very large, very, very large Earth, imagine. And due to the Martian Wars and part of the Orion Wars, the planet was destroyed. Mars was thrown out of its orbit and turned into a regular planet. The atmosphere was blown off of Mars. Most of the inhabitants died on both planets. So the Federations and the angelics take the souls, they rehab the souls because of the massive trauma they must have faced. And once they're rehabbed to a certain extent, they're placed, and through karmic restitution, their high level, probably fourth density soul, which was a higher level than we are currently by a little bit, was placed in the bodies of the Bigfoots, the Dogmen, about 500,000 years ago. Whoa. to serve out this cosmic restitution, this karmic restitution. So understand that these beings that we're dealing with, even though they have a second density physical body, they're not capable of the fine motor skills of the human. Their soul is relatively elevated, and they are able to operate in other frequencies at times. Hard to explain, hard to understand.
Interdimensional. Well, we call that like the X factor, interdimensional. And, you know, I'm out there doing a lot of boots on the ground field research. There's a lot of stuff we can't explain, Nick, that happens. And that includes them being invisible and cloaking and going in between realms and stuff. And
they are capable. Yes. They are capable of higher functions, as are we, as are our DNA will allow. But most of our strands of DNA are inactive currently. That is part of what we're working on. Okay, some of these beings are capable when they go into meditation, into trance, certain situations, they're able to phase in and out of this particular realm. From what I understand, the Bigfoots, they have a certain thing where they have a funeral rite, where they get in a certain mindset and they actually bury their dead in a realm that is not detectable in the 3D. It's very complex. Anyway, this is where I'm going. Okay, so with the Dogman,
it makes sense to me.
all we're hearing about the Dogman is they're vicious, demonic creatures, and because all we hear about is the ones that go rogue, that kill people. Look, just like humans, right? They're very despicable, hateful, violent humans, and they're very angelic, godlike humans. We look the same. We don't act the same. The same with the Dogman, the same with these other beings. Now understand, I would say 99% of every Dogman incident, of every Dogman that you guys see in your lifetimes, in anyone's lifetimes, have been the ones that were modified by the governments, by this three-letter agencies, by the breeding programs. These are the ones that will act out and that will cause harm and mayhem. The natural big, Dogmen and werewolves, you will not see. You typically will not see them. And that is by design. So just understand the ones that you're going to be dealing with, if you're on these expeditions, are probably the ones that were bred out of Langley and other places nearby to be military assets. They would be the ones that were MK Ultra. They were raised to be soldiers. That's what they're for.
Wow.
So, just know that and understand that the true beings, the majority of these creatures worldwide, are very benevolent. They're very guardian type of the planet. And there are stories of these natural beings protecting certain areas of the world from invasion, from war. I read one the other day about a group of Russians in the early 40s that attacked Finland, and an entire regiment was decimated by these dogmen. Decimated.
Really?
There were hundreds and hundreds found dead, hanging in trees, dismembered. Not a bullet was fired. And these stories will be continuing to come out over time. But the good dogmen, the natural, the organic dogmen, in my belief, are godlike beings and should be revered. And I strongly feel that we have to understand the differences. Just like when we talk about Israel, the Israelis are beautiful people. The fake Zionists are not Israel. They are not the Jews. They are the cabal. We must be able to separate and understand that within a group of humans or within a group of dog-like, wolf-like creatures, wonderful, great things can exist and evil things can exist. We have to understand that. It's very important.
It's for entertainment purposes only today, everybody. Okay. Oh my gosh. I want to thank Rhonda for that super sticker. Thank you so much, Rhonda. She says, thanks, Jessica. Nick Sylvester is the perfect guest for me. And for me too. Oh my gosh,
Thanks.
This is wild. Yeah. C Duke has this for entertainment purposes only. We always have to say that on my shows, Nick, because we're putting out some pretty interesting information to everybody. But that is a wonderful point. Oh my gosh. Yes. The ones that we are seeing, like the dogmen, I don't know, maybe the Bigfoots too, but mostly the dogmen, for example, probably have been part of these programs. And I've been told that by other people as well, Nick. You're not the only person that has told me that. And people know that I'm out there investigating encounters and things like that, and on the trail as well of dogmen, and the ones that I would be encountering probably would be part of some sort of a program out there. So we have to be,
an X program. Yeah, it would be an X program. The program was shut down a year and a half ago, 2 years, something like that, maybe a little longer. But so these things are rogue. They're out there, with no handler for the most part. I don't know what's going on since Victor died. I don't know, what the white hat groups are trying to do. I don't know, but I do know that about a year and a half ago, the number of these programmed dogmen was approximately 150,000 creatures.
That's
nationwide, just in the United States.
That's a lot. And so I have a friend who lives out. I'm not going to say exactly where he lives, but it's somewhere out in kind of the southwest. And he assured me that's where one of the programs, I don't know if that's the home base or what, but there's a program out there, and he was actually a part of it when it came to the dogmen. And I'm going to call him critter control, is what I like to call what he did for those programs actually. And he said that he was like, well, that program was, because I bring up that there was an Israeli news article, and it was a video, and they were discussing a super soldier program that was being brought back in. Like the assets had kind of gotten out of control. And it was like, they were talking about how it was like humans being mixed with like, lion, wolf, and bear DNA. And we were making connections like, well, maybe some of these people who were getting mauled in East Tennessee, that's where two of these super soldier hybrids had been dropped off right there in Cott County, right there around that area. And maybe that's what happened to those people who got mauled to death out there. And so a friend sent me an article, and they were putting out to the public, well, hey, we had this program. They weren't talking to the public, they were talking to Congress. Okay, and wanting money to eliminate the assets because they had gotten out of control. Well, okay, so there's a little breadcrumb for us, right? And so I was asking a friend of mine about that, and he was like, "Well, that program was stopped, and those assets were eliminated, but that doesn't mean there aren't other programs. And we're on generation number 22 now. Okay, that was Gen 6. Now we're on
Yes.
Gen 22.
And that's
You know
so
what I mean?
important. I'm glad you brought that up, Jess, because so many people want to sort of flex their ego and be the one who knows everything, but nobody does. I mean, there are programs within programs. There are arms of groups. There are runaway, breakaway groups that are involved in the dispatching of these groups. There are groups of mercenaries that are hired by unauthorized personnel to dispatch these groups. I mean, there's a great number of things that are going on. And more importantly, it's all compartmentalization. So even if you're a guy in one of the groups, more than likely, you do not know who is behind the money that is paying. It could be the good guys, it could be the bad guys, it could be someone in between. But the complexity is still great, and nobody has a full grasp of exactly how all of this is working. They just don't.
Mm-mm.
I don't. You know
I
what I
don't
mean?
know nothing about nothing, Nick. I say that all the time. I don't know nothing about nothing. Okay, but I do know that I do like looking into these things and hearing what people have to say about it, and trying to connect some dots. Okay, because like I am a field researcher. I do get out in the woods. I do go to our national parks. I do investigations at people's properties and stuff, and I like to know kind of what I'm at least have a little bit of a clue as to what I'm dealing with out there. But we're not only dealing with dogmen, we've got skinwalkers and a lot of black magic and stuff is involved with some of these cases with like werewolves and all that. And so we just have to, I'm just listen. I have to keep a really open mind about everything.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. And
Yeah.
I told you this backstage, but I'm gonna throw this out to all of the dogman hunters out there.
Okay.
Most of what goes on, we don't know. We don't understand. Most of what takes place, even on this planet, we don't understand. Just understand this, and this is factual. The dogman, let's just say the dogman, the werewolf, even Bigfoot, they are aware of your intentions. It is a very simple, common ability for any being that is slightly more spiritually advanced than we. It is every advanced ET group that we deal with has it second nature. They know your intentions. If you're out to hunt or trap or harm or shoot, they will know this. So please just be careful. Just if you believe nothing else that I say or any Jess says, understand that their detection of your intentions is rudimentary for these beings.
Yeah, they can see straight through you. Okay. They have a third eye, just like ThreeI. This in our solar system right now as well. ThreeI, they have a ThreeI as well. Okay, and so that's why I feel like my teams have always had like my research teams have always had really positive results out in the field. And we have had communication with the Bigfoots, the forest people, and stuff. And we have nothing but pure intentions when we're out there. Okay, now of course I got another team that likes to go out and investigate, and like it's not. I'm not gonna say it's not so pure,
Air
but
quotes,
yeah, they're
investigate.
investigator. Those guys like to investigate, track and stuff. So it's a little different. So it's a little more on edge out there. And but that doesn't happen very often. We don't get out there too much with that. But still, there is a difference. You can feel the difference in the energy when you're out there amongst the two different groups. Okay, so
There's no doubt.
yeah. Yeah, it's very dangerous. Don't do what I do, y'all. Nobody. Okay.
Yep.
But
Yep. We do not recommend any of that.
no, no. But I mean, it is fun to get out in the woods and go and explore. And I know, like over the past couple of years, I've really focused my intention on like bringing all this stuff to light, bringing as far as like not only the cryptids, but I kind of focus on some dark stuff, Nick, like the missing people out of all our national parks and things like that. And I'm trying to shine light on it and encourage people not to live in the fear of it, but just to be aware. Don't let these things happen to you and your children. So I don't know, where do we go from here, and like what do you see in our future?
Well, on that light, from experience, I would recommend that people try not to go down too many rabbit holes and try not to go too deep, because you're going to keep finding stuff that's darker and darker than what you already found. And how much dark do you need to have going in swimming around in here before you kind of get an idea of what's been going on? That's my recommendation. I don't sleep so well at night anymore because of some of the information that has been shared with me. It keeps going and going. And once you start looking into the missing people, you'll find out that it's in the millions. And it just doesn't help after a certain level to keep yourself in this energetic loop, this traumatic loop of all of the terrible things that have happened to us. We must forge forward into the amazing things that will be happening to us, how we're creating the world we want to live in. And that it is exactly what's going on. This government shutdown, for instance, all by design, all to clear out the remaining groups of governments that didn't want to go on their own. ThreeI Atlas coming in. A lot of amazing things are taking place. More and more disclosures going to be happening. The good guys have already won. The only challenge that we have left, and this is the only challenge, is our own population, our own neighbors, our own family, to try to drop the hate, understand the division, understand how it got there, understand who put it there deliberately. Okay? You need to hate them and they need to hate you, and it's all by design. This is not human nature. This was created over hundreds of generations by design. And until we start to be able to see that, even if we could just sort of understand how it worked, that is when the learning and the growing starts. And all of a sudden, all of the bad things begin to fade away. They no longer have a grip because they no longer have strength. That's my best recommendation for where we're going.
I love it. Actually, okay. So what we're doing now? So like we've covered a lot of this dark stuff. We've set the tone, like you know what's going on out there, y'all. And let's start focusing more on some brighter days ahead, and don't live in the doom and gloom. And and some of that data that I got out of things like ThreeI Atlas, some of it was like, oh well, it's a dark fleet coming. Well, there's definitely a fleet, okay, of something, thousands of potential probes and ships and all that. Well, how do we know that stuff hadn't always been up there to begin with? Okay, but we're just getting all the information now, and we have really positive things to look forward to. Let's keep it positive. Okay, we're going to keep things positive, and yes, I'm still going to get out there, and let's see if I'm trying to pull up some of these comments. They're moving really fast, y'all. Robin says, if it doesn't support your dream, do you really need it? And so yeah, we're going to y'all know we manifest our reality, right? We are into the collective consciousness. Let's put out positive thoughts and positive vibes, and get that highest timeline, and get ready to meet them aliens, y'all. Right? Right, Nick? Do you think that we're actually going to have like ETs present themselves to us here in the next couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt.
Really?
We could have some fallbacks, some setbacks. We can have some, insertions of humans just not quite being ready to accept what they see, but it's already written out. The first groups we're going to meet is a group from Alpha Centauri. Our nearest solar neighbors. They're already ready. They look just like us. You won't probably be able to tell them apart. Most people will not even believe they are ETs. And then we will continue to meet similar looking, behaving other humans that live elsewhere. Pleiadians. There are a lot of star systems near ours that have people that look a lot like we do. They may have different pupils or slightly different eyes or skin. They may be taller by average. They may be whiter. They may be darker. But there are many groups out there that look just like us. And those are the ones we'll see first. And as time progresses, we'll start to meet some of the more unusual looking ones. But it's already in the writing.
Well, I've been
and
joking
I'm
around.
thinking next year, sometime next year, I think maybe mid-year, we will probably be introduced to some Alpha Centaurians.
Well, I've been preparing my audience for a while. I've been telling them I might be an alien. I don't know. Okay, so so we'll see. I don't know. Some of your favorite podcasters might be aliens. You guys, you never know. Okay, so
you really don't. There are groups that have been living among us for quite some time, and you can't tell them apart. So for whatever that's worth, believe it or don't.
Yeah, I think we're ready. I think we've been seeing it quite a bit, and actually through a lot of my remote viewing targets that I've put out into the public, there's some blind targets that Barry Littleton, my friend, has given me, and stuff. I've been seeing a lot of humans living on other planets. I don't know if Alpha Centauri was one of my targets, but a lot of my targets that are in the habitable zones, especially like some of the brown dwarf planets and the lights on Ceres. Ceres is like a place where there's humans. The TRAPPIST-1 star system as well. I thought I was remote viewing Earth in the future. Okay, on all of those, they had like highways and mid-rise apartments and shopping centers and all that there on these planets.
Yeah, we have over 60 different establishments off planet where there are at least 40,000 Earth humans living and working there. 60. Many of them are in this part of the galaxy, but there actually are some that are in different galaxies. I believe Andromeda, that there are Earth humans that used to live here that are now there doing business. It's hard to believe, and like I said, it's your opportunity to look into this to see if you're able to get to a place where you do believe some of this stuff.
Well, my audience knows my remote viewing data, and you can go to my playlist for anyone who's listening on podcast platforms and watching live right now. You guys go to my playlist, my remote viewing playlist, and look up some of those shows that I've done, and you can find all of my raw data on my Patreon if you guys are interested in that. For all of these different planets where there is actually humans. I was writing down like humans and humanoids, and these are blind. I'm given coordinates, blind targets. I feel like I'm remote viewing Earth in the future, but it's actually off planet. And I think it's fantastic. Tyrone knows what's up. I come from the planet of Talladega. Yes, Talladega Nights, y'all. If you ain't first, you're last in this galactic universe here. And so thank you. Yes, I'm a country. If you want to call Alabama another planet, I understand. Okay. But anyways, we like to have fun here too, Nick. And gosh, I've had a blast with you today, and I have learned so much. I feel like my consciousness has raised just from having you here. So thank you.
I'll tell you, every time we get together, like an hour and a half goes by in 10 minutes to me. Boom. It's just because there's a lot more. I mean, we barely touched the surface level on several things that I've been kind of working on. And, I still have never told you my Dogman encounter. I've never, we don't probably have time today because I know you got to go somewhere. I got to go somewhere, but next time I probably should tell that little story of mine.
Okay, how about this? Why don't we bring you on one of my nighttime shows? Those shows go on forever. I can do a 2-3 hour show at night, but it's just during the day they're short. So let's bring you on a nighttime, a Thursday or a Saturday. And it's a lot later for me over here in Georgia than it is for you over on the West
I
Coast.
know.
So
Yep.
it won't be
Yeah.
too late for you. How about
Let
let's
me
do that?
know. Let
Okay.
me know because like I said, we just sort of touched on very surface level, general,
We did.
topics with very little supporting details. But I mean, we already spent an hour and a half, so that's kind of why. So let me know.
Oh
I'd
yeah.
love to.
Okay. We're going to plan on it, Nick. We will. Thank you so much for being here. Do you have any kind of anything you want to promote? Or I know you had a Rumble show for a while. What do you have in your future? What are you doing right now? What kind of projects?
We did. I've honestly been sort of working more along the lines of future humanitarian projects that I want to become involved in. I've sort of left a lot of the truther stuff for all of the new. I mean, there's so many truthers now. 5 years ago, there was like 8 of us, So I've sort of, I'll do shows from time to time. I have some friends in Australia and Spain and a group of gals in North Carolina and others that I'll pop on from time to time. But I don't do my own bit as of right this minute.
Okay. Well, please come back soon. We will. I try to have you on like once a month or, at least every couple of months when I can. And gosh, we'll schedule for a nighttime show and we will go deep into the cryptids and your Dogman encounter. I can't wait. Maybe I will have had another Dogman encounter by the time we do that, actually.
Well, I hope it's a safe one.
Planned.
Make sure you have a safe encounter.
I will. I mean, I'll try. I'll try my best. Okay.
You better.
I promise. All right, y'all. Well, thank y'all so much for hanging out with us today. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your week. I will be back tomorrow night. I do believe Dr. John's coming on with me tomorrow night for a remote viewing show. And then I'll be back on Saturday with my friend Doc Brown of Prometheus Lens Podcast. We're going to be talking about Esau, Dogmen, werewolves, vampires, whatever. We got a lot to talk about on Saturday. And I want to thank so much. Let's see. Hold on before we go. Rhonda, thank you for that super sticker. It means the world to me for your support and for everybody who was here today. And yes, C. Duke, the show is for entertainment purposes only. We will reiterate that one more time. And Nick, thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Having you here. As always. All right, y'all, stay safe out there. Don't live in fear. Keep your head on a swivel. And don't touch weird meteorite aliens, okay, with your bare hands. At least put on some gloves. All right? I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Bye, Nick. Bye, y'all.
Bye, guys.